Every 4 years, the Gallup poll asks Americans if they believe in ghosts, hauntings, and other phenomena. In 2005, the Gallup poll found, in a conclusive study, that 3 out of 4 Americans believe in some paranormal event.
Poltergeist, the film, did have quite a big impact in getting far more people interested in the phenomenon of poltergeists, because I think most people were simply not aware how common it is. Happens all the time, happens all over the place.
In paranormal investigation, it's imperative to ask questions to get all the facts before you make an educated decision.
Those doing psychic research attempt to prove the existence of ghosts or supernatural events using strictly scientific means.
A lot of people want the raw data. They want the true scientific data. They may take scientists with them, which is probably the best thing to do.
We've already made arrangements for relocating the cemetery. Besides, we've done it before.
When?
In '76. Right down there.
In the movie Poltergeist, it is somewhat accurate in, the story that it tells, because if you are dealing with angry spirits, especially dislocated spirits, bodies that were under the home that weren't moved, then yes, they can manifest enough energy, especially if there's more than one, and cause a true poltergeist to happen.
The movie plays into our fears. All of the ghost moments and fear moments, ectoplasm and such.
You can't control it, so you're afraid of it. We're fearful of the things we can't control because there's something ignorant about it. We don't know what it is, so therefore it's more powerful than us, and therefore it frightens us.
There's something going on, and I'd like to know, from a scientist's perspective, what is going on.
In psychic detection, there are really 2 branches. Those who attempt to prove the existence of ghosts or supernatural events using strictly scientific means. And the other side are those who use metaphysical means to try to find answers to this great riddle. They are psychics and mediums.
Now let's go get your daughter.
When you have a haunting, a ghost, a poltergeist, or you have a psychic impression, all 3 things are very different, but they're all in the same area.
How long have you been investigating haunted houses?
The determination as to whether your home is haunted is not very easy. What I meant to say was it might very well be a poltergeist.
Poltergeist, the word means banging ghost, noisy ghost. And that's what they tend to do, basically, to make a hell of a noise. But they can also throw things around.
The manifestation is usually noisy manifestations, and because they want attention, they don't know who they are, what they are. They're lost. They don't understand that they've died, and so they want to get attention. And the only way they know how to make attention is to make a lot of noise or to create physical things, move objects, throw objects. That's all part of the physical phenomena, except we don't call it poltergeist. We call it physical phenomena.
In fairly recent years, there have been some quite interesting advances. These advances have been brought about by scientists, in fact, who wonder whether there's not some possible way of actually communicating electronically with the dead, and, have had some quite amazing results.
In the course of doing our investigative work from a scientific perspective, very seldom are we actually looking for a physical manifestation of a ghost. That's usually a pretty rare occurrence. Poltergeist, of course, is a classic film, and I can't begin to overstate how much an impact the movie made on me as a child. The scene in the film where the spirits are coming down the stairs and the parapsychologists, the ghost hunters, have all of their equipment set up.
Roll it back.
They're saying, did we get that on tape? Did we get that on tape? And they roll it back.
I think we got one. I think it recorded.
And sure enough, it recorded. I got goosebumps. It really made me start thinking, could you actually use electronics to substantiate the existence of these things? It really propelled me towards this as a field of study.
What was that? I did hear that.
These days, we do a lot of surveillance, meaning we'll set up a DVR camera with anywhere from 4 to 8 to 12 cameras in certain rooms to see if we can see any kind of movement. We use radiation Geiger counter type instruments. This is a Geiger counter. You should get, I don't know, a couple of hits every minute. We were in the other room. We were getting a lot of feedback from our Geiger counter. This was more than a few times per minute, so there's obviously something other than normal radiation going on here.
This is an EM meter. It uses electromagnetic energy. Yeah, I would usually get a bounce of 2 or 3 points. This is just going nuts.
What we're looking for is an inference that a ghost may be present. How do they disrupt the environmental variables? That's a strong indicator that there might be a presence there, even though we can't directly observe it with our eyes.
Everybody was so fascinated that the little girl came through the TV set. Oh my God, how can that be? Voices through the TV. But only when the TV was on an off channel where you heard static.
I believe that the little girl in Poltergeist, when she was communicating with the spirits on the other side, she was going through the white noise, which does pick up the EVP.
EVP is an acronym. It stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. And quite simply, these are voices and sounds that, again, are not audible to the unaided ear at the time the recording is made. They're only audible at the time the recording is played back. Lily, can you give us a sign that you're here, please? And in my personal opinion, this is some of the most compelling evidence that we have of the existence of ghosts.
Some people like the dowsing rod. They'll actually take 2 coat hangers and they'll hold them out in a, like a horizontal position. And when the coat hangers, the end of the coat hangers kind of intersect, they'll say, hey, there's a ghost there.
When I first started doing this, there were no books about how to do an investigation. But ultimately, it boils down to how well you do the research and how well you follow up on it.
Science demands repeatable results under controlled observations, and paranormal activity by its very nature is paranormal, meaning outside the norm. It does not repeat on command. It does not manifest when we want it to, and because we lack this repeatability under controlled observations, it's an uncertainty.
Can you see me? Can you see Mommy?
Most paranormal investigators today will find the happy medium in the middle and will use their tools as well as a psychic to guide them on what hauntings may be going on in a location. Because an investigator can come in and they may have tools that they can get readings and say, okay, we believe that there's a haunting here because my readings are ABC. However, the psychic can come in and fill in the blanks.
What I'm trying to do, what I want to do is I want to establish a two-way dialogue with you. I'm going to be able to ask you a series of yes and no questions. I want you to flash the device twice for a yes answer and once for a no answer. Do you understand? In terms of working with a psychic or a medium on a paranormal investigation, there was a point in time when I wasn't really interested in that. I was more interested in the hard scientific data that I could record. Psychic impressions and mediumistic impressions, of course, are a very subjective, very personal account. There's really no way to substantiate that, or so I thought. And then my eyes were sort of opened to this a couple years ago. A psychic medium had told me that they actually should be treated as another tool, another instrument to add to my arsenal.
We generally go in and investigate for, for true signs of hauntings, and that's my job as well, to dissertate whether or not there is a ghost or some sort of unnatural phenomenon.
The clairvoyant in the movie, some of what she does is accurate.
She does a great job of walking through the house, making certain where everything is, her clairvoyance does go one step further, that she's able to make actual communication with whatever that is. She's able to see past the normal psychic energy.
Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
I think one of the reasons people are so interested in ghost hunting is it's like the final frontier. Everyone can't go to space, they can't go to the bottom of the ocean, they're not going to be able to climb Everest, but anybody can do ghost hunting that's willing to open themselves up to the experience.
People have always believed in ghosts simply because it seems to be one of the most important questions ever. And the more you look into it, the more you feel it's completely crazy that some people say, I do not believe in ghosts, because nobody who takes the trouble to look into it could say, I do not believe in ghosts. There's too much evidence.
What members of the household are involved? And what are their ages?
The first thing I do is ask a lot of generic questions. When do these things seem to occur? The time of day, month, are the kids present? What's the family psychodynamics like? Do they have a history of this? Did they have it around them prior to moving into their current residence? All of these things are relevant.
Would your family welcome a serious investigation of these disturbances?
When I go out investigating a site, I usually am alerted by a phone call, sometimes an email. Someone is panic-stricken, something is happening in their house, I can't explain it. I immediately take a deposition, and I try to develop a timeline. What happened first? What happened second? Then I walk through the site, usually on my own, to see if there might be a natural explanation. I put on the skeptical hat, and I try to discount everything that they report.
Something came down the stairs with me, and then it was a child, and then it was clutched, like peeking out from behind me.
One second I'll see her there, the next second she's up there. You know what I'm saying? So she's sort of pop, pop.
There's always a part of the house that's wanted more. It's not the whole house. It's something in that room, something bad, something unfinished.
Usually if you go back into the history of a haunted house, you'll find a record that there's been some kind of trauma there. It's one thing to hear all these stories, and you hear people saying, wow, you know, my furniture just overturned. But it's another thing when you get it on camera. Otherwise, it's just a fish that got away story.
Do things like this happen? Yes. I saw a large bull fly off a table by itself and crash into a wall. Once during a seance, we had a tape recorder just flip off the table and crash into a wall. This has happened, but not with the same force as you find in the movie. You don't see all of it happening at once, at one time. It's usually far more subtle than that.
To say that poltergeists are evil is totally wrong. To say that poltergeists are a bloody nuisance and they ought to be put in reform school, that's true.
Energy does not come in the form of bulk. Energy is everywhere around us, 24/7. It's what makes us tick. It's what life is.
Physics says that energy only gets greater by collecting more energy, which then produces an outcome being footsteps or slamming of a door, touching somebody, or hearing their voice. So they need to muster together that energy to produce this outcome. And this is kind of the thought process that everybody uses as to what a ghost is.
Look at all of them.
We are a new science. Even though people have been talking about ghosts for thousands upon thousands of years, actual study is only about 100 years old.
All these things about evil and ghosts and spirits, you will always have an interest in the paranormal.
There is definitely a reality to the phenomenon. As I said before, I think we're at the tip of a very large iceberg.
In Poltergeist, Jo Beth Williams says, it's like another side of nature. And this is the belief of the spiritualist movement, that ghosts aren't something outside of the realm of human understanding. It's just a new science that we've yet to understand.
They're here.
when I was in school. I said, I can talk to dead people. And of course, nobody talked to me for a long time.
These types of events have been occurring since the dawn of human civilization. There isn't one culture on Earth that has not reported them.
So if you're clairvoyant, that means you see it. It's like you're able to see into another dimension.
Do we have a spirit? Do we have a soul? Whether or not we survive bodily death, I guess that's the ultimate question.
What are ghosts? Why, am I crazy? Is it like, who knows what it is? I want to know.
We wanted to be scary. We spent a week with a lot of books about ghosts and poltergeists, and we also wanted to base it on what we felt were the facts that existed in literature and with people who studied ghosts. So we wanted to base all of the things that happened in the movie on those kind of things rather than on things that were made up.
Poltergeist disturbances are of a fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Are you telling me that all of this could just suddenly end at any time?
Yes, it could. Unless it's a haunting.
One of the most ancient beliefs we have, and it permeates the whole of the human condition, is that ghosts are spirits of the dead who come back to communicate a message. And the number of people who've reported this is phenomenal.
The term ghosts suggests and implies that when our physical body dies, that something remains behind.
I think a ghost is an entity, something that can appear, more visual, but you can also hear it.
Where are they coming from?
I don't know.
Ghosts are people who don't know that they're dead. So we're actually dealing with a kind of continuity between, this world and the world of people who are dead.
What are these ghosts and spirits actually like? I mean, why do they exist in the first place? What do they want? Why are they here? Why don't they just stay there? Why are they coming to us?
A spirit or a ghost is simply someone who hasn't passed through the light.
A ghost is stuck between this world and the next world.
We see that generally a violent traumatic death is what seems to precipitate a ghost.
Ghosts supposedly linger because they have unfinished business, something that they haven't really finished in life.
Sometimes this becomes an entity who is not able to adjust to the next step, which is, of course, being on the other side.
It's a place there's no resolve to it. There's no closure. And what a psychic medium has to do is put that closure on it.
One thing's for certain, though. All ghosts are not equal. And one of the great examples of this is the difference between the so-called ghosts and the poltergeists.
The difference between a ghost and a poltergeist is obviously the difference between something that appears to be a completely natural thing, the ghost, and something which is actually, in effect, a kind of spiritual juvenile delinquent, because that's what poltergeists are.
Now, the word gives it away. Polter is German for noisy, and Geist is German for ghost.
They seem to kind of draw the energy to where they are. Books have flown off the shelf, vertically, not like they would fall over. People would hear voices.
It consists of objects being moved by unseen hands, things being thrown, or people being pushed. They don't understand that they've died. They don't understand that. And so they want to get attention.
But in the movie Poltergeist, there were certain things that did ring true. As I recall, there was a sequence where I believe it was Jo Beth Williams, she's in a kitchen, and the chairs keep kind of being rearranged behind her. Well, that's exactly what that ghost or poltergeist like to do. They love to move objects around.
Uh-huh.
Undoubtedly, Poltergeist, the film, did have quite a big impact in getting far more people interested in the phenomenon of poltergeist, because I think most people were simply not aware how common it is.
When I look at it now and look back on it, a lot of the stuff that's in there, it's all based on an actual occurrence. Sure, they enhanced a lot of that stuff for the dramatic effect, but, you know, if you really analyze every little piece of it, it's all based on actual experiences.
But what are they? That's the question. There's a lot of different theories. Some link them to hauntings, especially places of great tragedy. Some link them to children, especially young girls.
It's normally centered around a child, normally of high intelligence, but someone who holds everything in.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know.
Then you have the people who say they can communicate with the dead. You have the mediums, the clairvoyants, the psychics.
Medium, trans-channeler, all meaning the same thing. Medium being somebody who is in between.
I don't know what hovers over this house, but it was strong enough to punch a hole into this world, take your dog away from you.
Some call themselves shamans or spiritualists or spiritual healers.
The seance masters, you have the ghost hunters, etc., etc.
They're individuals who see and deal with the paranormal, with the outside, with the extremes of the mind.
Basically, channeling is the idea of being able to channel energy through you or be able to channel energy from the other side. But a trance channel was an individual who would allow an energy to come into their body and speak through them. There are a lot of people that still exist right now that they do that a lot.
This is fairly common. Some spirits can actually use people who can do this kind of thing.
Being a clairvoyant, being psychic, having given the gift of sight, if you will, is tapping into what we all have as our sixth sense.
Hello? What do you look like?
Everybody's capable of tapping into it. It's whether or not we choose to really hear, whether we're chosen to see.
You can always tell if somebody's psychic by their eyes. Their eyes are different. It's like you look through them, they're not the same. That's like a window to your soul.
You definitely can't be taught to be a clairvoyant or a mystic or a medium or anything like that. You have to have a talent for it.
As a child, I always knew things. I knew everything that was going on. I didn't like that gift. I was uncomfortable with it. Because, you know, try getting a date. You know what the guy's thinking.
There's certainly many people who are afraid of acting as mediums, and I don't blame them in the least. I can't think of a bigger bloody nuisance than being a medium.
They feel like freaks, and they're not able to function in a normal environment because they have these savantish things that are just coming out and emanating from them that they can't explain and that no one around them understands.
I've always had this, and it has made me seem very strange. And I have had people that come to me where I work, where I am a psychic, and they have the gift too, and they will never admit it, and they will never go there. But for a lot of people, it is very painful, and they just shut it down.
I sense. I can feel that where the activity is coming from, what room, where it hangs out the most, and where it scares the person the most, you know, when they would see it. Because ghosts have a funny way, and, you know, they just pick inappropriate times to bother you.
Emotions are the easiest ones for me to pick up. I pick up by seeing still pictures. I can see almost sometimes like a movie flashing in front of my mind, and I'm watching it and I'm trying to make sense of what I see.
Sometimes there are just ghosts that are pains in the ass and they hang around and they want you to hear their jokes, and they're not funny, but you're just not going to get rid of them no matter what you do.
Going back to ancient times, whenever someone wanted to make contact with the spirit world, they would enact a magical ritual or ceremony. And one of the most common ceremonies that people think of when they think of this kind of communication is the seance. The whole seance thing can be highly suspect, if not impossible to most people. And one of the people that it was highly suspect to, who spent most of his life debunking the seance, was Harry Houdini. After his mother died, Harry Houdini went and visited a medium and was completely desperate to make contact with his mother. And when he sat across from the medium at the table and realized that the person he was visiting, that he was entrusting his one lifeline to his mother, was doing phony and fake parlor tricks, he was devastated. And after more than one of those experiences, he became so angry and so incensed and so passionate about exposing these people because he saw them as people who were really capitalizing on other people's despair. In spite of the fact that Harry spent most of his career debunking these imposters and the charlatans, he never really gave up believing, and he never really said out in the open, I don't believe this is a possibility. In fact, I think it's quite the contrary.
Come here, honey, and give me your hand. I'm not gonna bite you.
Are all clairvoyants out to get us, out to fool us, out to take us? Are they all hucksters and cons and frauds? No.
When I was younger, the love of my life died, and he came back to me about 7 years after that to let me know that he was okay. And that opened a gate for me to be able to be in contact with people on the other side. Because the idea is that you being a human being on a certain vibration and the energy that you want to contact is on a higher vibration, you create a space that is in between so you can be lifted to a higher vibration and they have a space that's safe for them to come down and communicate.
This is something that goes back to ancient shamanism. This is something that exists in medieval and Renaissance Europe, where you create the sacred space to try and move into the next world. You shut your eyes, you take a few steps forward or a few steps back to move yourself into a sacred space before prayer.
This is our ultimate protection. Anything that wants to come in, if it is not welcome.
Next, she starts to feel that veil in between her world and the next.
I call in the higher energy of the tarot to fill me with your light, your love, and your wisdom, and to use me as a perfect channel for your divine.
This idea that the ghosts are just beyond the veil, that they're so close, they're right here with us, and that she can feel them there and sense them and hear them.
We also call in our higher selves to connect us. I can feel their energy. I can feel how they felt when they died. I can feel how they felt during their lives, how they love their family, messages that they have for their family. And by asking questions or being in touch, I'm able to feel what they feel and then translate that. It's an absolutely stunning feeling. There is nothing like it on the planet, nothing like it in the physical realm that you can experience that is like that. It is going home.
Spirits are around us, they're here to help us. That we need to be more accepting of, because they're not here to hurt or harm, they're here to help.
One of the most interesting groups of people that communicate with the dead or have supernatural contact are those that are guided by spirit guides. And these people can do some amazing and inexplicable things, whether it's climb a mountain without a rope or stay safe in an environment where danger is happening all around them. It's happened. It's a real thing. And I have no idea how it's done, but it certainly is fascinating.
The main thing that allows me to survive every single one of these experiences is following this spirit guide. It's following this intangible that I can't explain, that I have utter faith in, and it is following that to my final destination. You know, it's such a delicate balance between life and death when you're up there climbing. And you have to tap into something that goes beyond the physical and the mental realm. You have to tap into whatever that other thing is, that spirit guide that people talk about. This is not a video game. There is no do-over. You get one shot to get it correct. You have to be 100%. You can't even be like a slot machine. You can't be 98% payout, because that means 2% of the times you fail. I fail once, I'm dead. It's like every cell is on fire, but not in a demonic way. You're invincible because you're in with that something else. I mean, what we have right here is temporary. There is something out there that goes forever. It goes infinite. And when channeling this, you can do anything. Once you tap into the spirit guides and allow them to flood into you, why wouldn't you allow yourself to follow completely? And once you go to that next step, well, that's when everything is possible. And that's when you don't die. That's when you do live. And that's when you live to the fullest extent possible in this plane of life.
So this idea that there is an existence beyond this one, and that it is very similar to this one, and that we might be able to reach back, is very human.
To be honest with you, it gives me a lot of comfort to think that there's life after death. That this isn't, you know, we just disappear.
Communicating with the dead is a beautiful mystery. And if I have an opportunity to walk through that door, you bet I'm turning the knob.
I am told by many, many people that you rise out of your body into a light. But do we know this for sure? Only when we go ourselves.
Whatever it is, it's the answer to the greatest mystery of all. What happens when we die? And who isn't interested in the answer to that question?